Thanks for doing this, John. Really appreciate it. A lot of people have asked me to get you on the podcast. You're fairly popular in the industry. I think you guys are growing rapidly. And I think the good part about that fast growth is you're making friends on the journey. A lot of people, when they grow, they tend to make more enemies than friends. But every single person I've met up and spoken to has always said good things about you. Both you and Jamie. And on this podcast, I'm probably going to talk more about, you and your journey. more about you as a person and as the journey that you've had. So John, tell us, what do you do? If you can, tell us at the moment, what do you do?
At the moment, what I do?
Yeah, other than this podcast.
All sorts of, yeah. Do you know, it's an interesting question. I often think that. I had a thought process the other day about, I don't know why, about if I was to create a CV now based just pure off the back of what I've done at BOX12. Unbelievable the amount of different hats that I have to continually wear and have done throughout this journey. So, currently now I would say more operations. So looking at a lot of the BOX12 operations. So a lot of logistics, a lot of in-store stuff, making sure that the systems and processes that we have in place. But honestly, from a day-to-day, all sorts of different things, which is great for me. That's what I need. I can't just do the same task over and over and over again. I need to have variety in my day. And whether it's dealing with key accounts, whether it's out in Australia or in Saudi Arabia, or whether it's key accounts here in the UK. And interesting, just off the back of what you said there about, which is always nice to hear that people say nice things. That means a lot to me. That's really what I enjoy about this industry. And I think more than anything, rather than going into detail around how you deal with whether it's sales from a key account perspective, or all I ever try and do is just try and build really solid relationships with people. And when I look now at what BOX12 is, or what even hat and boxing has been over the last 14, 15 years, the thought that comes to my mind all the time is about how do I build a good relationship that potentially then turns into, which I've got now friends that are in the industry. And a lot of the things that we've achieved has come off the back of those relationships. And a lot of the time, I don't even think of things as a sales process. I literally just go, can I build a relationship? Do I enjoy spending time with the people? Do they enjoy spending time with people with me or with Jamie?
Yeah, it's always fun to be with you guys. I mean, I remember, to censor a lot of this.
Be careful.
But the fun we had when we were in Dubai, we all were we all living off 2 hours of sleep, if I'm not wrong. And we were still super charged up. I still remember, man, when we slept I slept at 7:30. I said, guys, you guys are nuts if you're going to go for golf. And 10 a.m. in the morning, there's a message on the group from you guys, you're playing golf. Fuck that, man. I mean, 10 in the morning, we slept at 7:30. I slept at 7:30. You guys didn't sleep at all. And you went in for a tee off. I couldn't fucking dream of doing that.
And it's all about enjoying the journey, enjoying the process, I suppose. And that's why Jamie and I have worked really well together. We both have that same ethos around, we want to enjoy what we're doing. BOX12's allowed us to really, really enjoy the journey, enjoy the process. And whatever will be. If you've got to go out after an hour's sleep and have a round of golf, then so be it. And it's the same the other way around. You do FIBO. This industry is so sociable. It's as important is it to be at those events and doing the work in the day and being on the stand as it is when it finishes and going meeting up with customers or friends that you've made or other suppliers and keep building that network. So, when you're away from work, it never stops. I don't really see the show part of it as important as it is the after party, as we'll call it. But yeah, I think sometimes you have to slow down a little bit. I think 4 days at FIBO can be a little bit challenging. But if you can't have fun and enjoy it, then I'd have to do something else.
No, I think you're right. As entrepreneurs, you need to love what you do. If you can't, because you're living that life 24/7, you can't you can't think that you're leaving something behind. You need to understand and believe that when you're there, you have to be there 100% mentally, physically, emotionally, meeting up with people, and you can't be thinking of, I know a lot of people who do this. And like you mentioned, one of the things that's very important, how do you be a good person? You just don't have to be a dickhead. And I think the problem is most people are, they will say something and they'll do something else. I think the good part is, what I've seen with you is you'll call a spade, you're extremely transparent. I think one of the values that, I kind of tell my team also to learn from yourself is that you're extremely transparent. And it's good to just tell people what it is. I always tell friends and business associates, pick up the phone and answer the call, right? And it's not necessary that you give people good news, but just tell them what it is. And that's very important. I think that's something that works very well. Communication, talking to people. I think you've excelled at art where people would say, even if it doesn't work out, you still have a good relationship with people. And I think people don't understand that not doing business together doesn't mean you can't be friends.
Absolutely. I don't go into any conversation, whether it's a potential customer, potential supplier, potential partner, with an agenda. I don't think. I go into every conversation and every meetup to let it play out, build that relationship, build that rapport, and then from the back of that, it will be what it will be. Sometimes there's an opportunity, sometimes there isn't. I've met large key accounts and built a good relationship up, and the reality is there's nothing there from a partnership perspective. It just doesn't work. Whether it's, like I said, whether it's BOX12, whether it's Hat and Box, whether it's anything else I've done before. But then, what have you got anything out of that interaction and that relationship? Potentially, if you got someone that you go to an event or you go somewhere and you see them and you enjoy their company and you spend a bit of time and you learn from them. So understand that how their world works or what's going on in their life and how they've managed it. And you can use, even if it's a tiny little bit of that. So I genuinely don't go into any interaction with someone new with an agenda. I go in, try and find out if I can learn anything from that conversation in the process of doing that.
We met up at Waterside just by accident. I mean, honestly,
absolutely.
I just saw the concept. I spoke to Jamie Lyon and I said, I think this is the future of, this is something that the industry needs, and I think this is going to be like absolutely massive in the years to come. Can I meet the founders? And we just met up, and that's it. And from there, one door opened, the other door, and we're sitting here after a year and a half doing a podcast together. So I think that's what you go in a meeting, with an open mind. So this tells me something about your personality. Have you always been like this? As a child, as somebody who went to college, or have you been like this forever, or is it something you've trained yourself? And the reason I'm asking, the context of the question is more to do with the fact that a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs have to change their personality types. You may be very good at people, you may be an introvert, you may be an extrovert, but you can still be a good entrepreneur. Did you feel as a person when you moved from working for somebody else to as an entrepreneur, did you change yourself? And if you did, how did you do that?
So I don't think I did. And I think about this, and I'm not sure whether this is a good trait or a bad trait, that I don't think I adapt to a situation. I think as I said before, without having an agenda. So use the example that you said about meeting you. I didn't have any research into what you were about. I didn't understand what the opportunity was before we went into that meeting. So when I meet someone, I don't go, what can I get out of this? What's the opportunity that is in front of me? And then go into a meeting with preparation like that. I go into it just going, let's just see what goes on. And I don't know whether that's a good thing. I think it's a bit of both. I think there's good things out of it.
I think it's a very good thing.
Yeah, maybe.
If you ask me personally, the reason I think it's a good thing is because, so example, a podcast, the way we are doing this podcast, there is no script to this. So there is, you can understand when you, as a listener, that there is no narrative. I'm not trying to push an agenda here. I'm just trying to have a conversation with you for viewers to see and learn from an entrepreneur. So there's no agenda per se. And we come out naturally the way we are. The moment you go with a narrative, a lot of times, I've realized people have fucked it up big time when they go with an agenda, because then they've gone with a mindset, this is what I'm going to do. And this is what my research says. But the best is when you're meeting people in person or having a call with them, a Zoom call or whatever. You get to know a lot about them as you speak with them. I think that's the best way of doing it.
Yeah, I think there's a balance. I think there's a balance between, I think a little bit of both, I think. But to answer your original question, no, I don't think I've changed. And the story's quite funny. From where it's all come from for me was all the inspiration around what I do now is from my mum. So my mum was very successful. She was a hairdresser. She had a number of salons. And when I was sort of 12, 13, she used to, when I was upstairs or when I was up, she had one of the hair salons and we lived above it. So she would shout and say, oh, Elsie's in the hair salon. She wants to talk to you, find out what you're doing and what's going on. So I would come down and I would talk to her. And then what happened is at Christmas, when they were tipping everyone, she would always leave £10 or £15 for me. And then the ladies in the hair salon would also go, oh, is Jon in? And I'll have a chat with him and all that. So I'd come down, and then what I started doing, I started working on a Saturday at the hair salon. And all I'd do is I'd just make teas and coffees, and I'd just sit next to the ladies having their haircut and talk to them, and used to tell some jokes and things. And then my mum would say, oh, can you move so-and-so's car, and all sorts of stuff as I got. And I got to where I used to do that until I was sort of 16.
Wow. In
this hair salon. And all I used to do is just talk to people. So people would walk in, I'd take the coat, I'd find out if I've had a good day. And I genuinely now think still to this day, everything I talk about building rapport with people is all based around being in that hair salon. And I can remember it, one of the girls who was my cousin, she used to work on a Saturday and she used to do all of the work. So we'd both technically be working on a Saturday, helping out my mum. She'd be doing the work, she'd be washing people's hair, she'd be putting rollers in and things. And I did nothing. So I did nothing other than make teas and coffees and just talk to these people. And a lot of the time it's, they were older clientele, so they might not necessarily have people that they would talk to. So they would come out and I'd almost like a jester. I'd be paraded in front of these ladies to go and talk to them and tell them jokes and stuff. And then when it came to counting the tips up around Christmas, I'd be getting 150, £200 in tips. And poor Sarah would be getting £15 and she'd do all the work. And I'd always, be laughing with her saying, I just, all they want me to do is talk to them. And I do genuinely now think that has still stayed with me. And having those conversations, I remember lots of the ladies that used to come into the thing. I remember lots of the people that were there. And all of them are telling them different stories or speaking to them about it. So, and it stays with me. So when you say that around, have I changed? I still think I'm in the hair salon when I'm going on a meeting with a big key account somewhere, just talking to them as it is.
I mean, interesting you say this because I think that age is very impressionable. At that age, what you learn, you kind of imbibe those values in yourself. So, and it really helps in the long run. I'll give an example of, one of the communities in India called the Bania community. They're the business community of India. And what they would do is for their children, when they're in their school, just about getting into what you call as college here, just before that, they will get them to start coming to the business house and just ask them to sit there. Before that, one step before, when they are in their, say, school in, the 6th standard or whatever, the mother would tell the child, take your lunch for your father.
Yeah.
And he will just go there, sit with him when he's having lunch and have lunch with him and see what's happening around. As he grows, he goes and starts sitting there. And then by the time he's actually going to college, he's spending at least, 20 hours a week kind of a thing at the business. And there is no other teaching better than actually being there at that age and seeing how business works.
Yeah.
No MBA will ever teach you what you learn when you're with an entrepreneur, with a businessman.
Yeah. And you see the values, and I see that when I was saying about my mum. I could clearly see the value that she put on her business that she'd built with these hair salons was all about the customer experience and all about what the customer felt like when they walked in the salon, the experience they had while they're having their haircut. She didn't talk to me about accounts and how to do the accounting and, didn't talk to me about how to cut someone's hair. I wasn't interested in doing anything like that. All I remember from it is actually the value that she put on looking after that person when they came in. And they might have been there, because some of them they're having their hair permed, 2 hours. That 2 hours, whether she did it consciously, and again, I've never really asked her, but whether she did it consciously, she made sure that experience every single time for people. She just had so much repeat custom, whether she moved from salon to salon as she was growing, all of her customers would always follow her. And when she eventually, in another story we'll probably get into why she got rid of the salon, the main salon that she had, she then left and went and worked for someone that worked for her and just had a chair in the salon. And she just couldn't fit all the people in because everyone that were having a haircut just came thing. And it wasn't because, I mean, she was obviously a very good hairdresser, but it was all about because the experience that they had with her when they were there for an hour or two.
100%.
And that has stayed with me all the way through. And that interaction with it's like customer service, but also the value that she came of creating a relationship with someone is probably the biggest lesson that I learned through that whole period. I look back now, it was funny that, you know, I'm in boxing now and I started off in hairdressing, you know, that's how I look at it. You couldn't get too far apart, right?
So tell me, how did this jump happen into boxing? Hadn't boxing started almost like 14, 15 years back?
Yeah.
Well,
there's a step before that, because my main sport is cricket, as you know. Yeah. And when it became time, my mum wanted to retire and pack in the hair salon, I wanted to open a cricket shop. So what my mum did, she probably regrets it now.
I could have given you supplies from India.
Well, there you go. Only if I'd have known you 22 years ago. But I was 22 at the time, so I was in fitness, so I was personal training, doing all sorts of different jobs in that. When I think back now about this being an entrepreneur, and the reason why I never really see myself as that is I always just wanted to do something different than what I was doing. And that's what I look back now and go, it's because I wasn't happy working for someone else and I always wanted to work. I didn't realise it.
So what were you doing at that point of time when you were working for somebody else?
So at the time I was a fitness manager of a club in Preston. So I was only 20. It was a big club, 4,500 member club, very nice, brand new. Been there from the start it opened. But I always felt, and again, when I look, I didn't realise it at the time, but when I look back now, I was always wanting to do something different. So when I was a fitness man, I wanted to have my own little PT business that was my own. And I didn't recognise it as I had this trait that I wanted to do something different. And I was always constantly trying to find something else to be doing than what I was actually supposed to be doing, which was my job. But I love the industry, I love fitness, I love keeping fit, I love training and things. But I was playing cricket and I'd met various different people and I'd seen what was going on around the local cricket area, it wasn't that straightforward to get equipment, and the online presence wasn't a big thing. And also buying cricket equipment online's not that simple. We're a bit finicky about like the bats and things that we use.
Tell me about it.
So I wanted to open a cricket shop. So not really any thought process around how seasonal it'll be or anything like that. I just wanted to open a cricket shop. And my mum, being my mum, went, well, I'll tell you what, I'll shut my salon down, you can have that, and just turn it into a cricket shop. So that's what I did.
So sweet.
So literally just went, you can, and looking back now, she probably thinks she probably should have kept hold of it a little bit. So I set about this crazy journey of opening a cricket shop at 21 years old while I moved to being fitness manager and went PT and a bit more local. So I could have more time to build the shop, got someone to fit it out, got all the equipment in. And because I was playing cricket in a local community, it was successful because everyone in that local area would then come and buy equipment off me. The fact I was too young, didn't understand what I was doing, hadn't have the right support in place, meant ultimately it failed after 3 years. Because it was so seasonal and I didn't have a plan in place of what I was going to do when the weather's like it is and it ends in October or September and the cricket
summer
season's
ends
done.
Before it starts.
And I'm sort of sitting there waiting for Christmas for people to come and buy stuff for Christmas presents, and then you've then got to wait for the season to come around. You know, looking back now, if I'd have managed it properly and know what I know now, I'm sure I probably would have still been there. But I'm glad it isn't, because it's not what I wanted to do. You know, the bigger picture of what we've got now with BOX12 is not what I was never going to have 100 cricket shops.
But what this says is that you always had that bug of being an entrepreneur yourself.
I didn't realise it.
Yeah, and I think it's also to do with the fact that, you know, people who are entrepreneurs also want to have some kind of ownership on their own destiny, right? They will, but they have self-belief as well.
Yeah.
So if you were to look at yourself, you know, did you have that self-belief saying that, you know what, I may fuck it up, that's okay, but I have confidence that I can rebuild myself. How did you, at that age, 21, 22, when you're doing two things together, and then after 3 years you had to shut down the shop because of, it was a seasonal business and you realized, you not planned it well, whatever it was. When you shut down that business, what was the first reaction when you said, so the day you decided, took a call that I'm shutting this down, what went through your mind?
I don't really know. And that's a terrible answer for a podcast. I've always had this inner belief that I'll be all right. I'll be all right. So when people talk about pensions and life after work, or even when I look back at the cricket shop, I never had what am I going to do now? I just had I'll be all right. Because something inside me constantly just kept going. Well, you'll just do something else, and you'll find something else. And I never even thought of it. I'll just keep finding it until I've found the right thing to do. I remember there was another local shop which was in Bolton, and I'd agreed that they were going to take the stock. And the only one real moment of closing the shop that I remember filling a van with all my stock of the shop and driving it to Bolton to drop it off, and cried on the way there, because and it wasn't because I'd failed at it. I think I was more, I've not done this right. And now I'm giving up. I've had a lifestyle for 3 years where, my mates used to come round to the shop on a Friday afternoon, and we'd all sit around, and everyone would come in, cricket chats, and people from the other teams would come in and talk to me about, their team for the weekend. I used to find everything out that was going on. And I've given that.
You could have been a bookie at that point.
That's it. Yeah, I could have been doing it, touting players. And and again, it goes back to that relationship. People would come in the shop, and I remember the people that would come in. I still speak to them now when I play against them. They would come into the shop on a Friday afternoon at 2 because they finished work early, and just chat for 3 hours. Not particularly buy anything. And I didn't, and again, about having that agenda, I never sat there and went, how do I get this person? It was like, do you know what? Just keep building. He might go and tell 5 other friends, and that wasn't why I was doing it, but that's naturally what happens. But I do remember driving that transit van back to Bolton with all bats and pads and everything, and being upset. And then when I dropped it off, I almost had a sense of relief, though, that I didn't have to carry the stress, because, when you're closing a business down like that, especially when what was I, 24 by the time that I closed it down, the stress that becomes with it. You've got bills to pay, you've got things to pay that, when it's a seasonal business, you haven't managed it properly, those things become a challenge. So there was a lot of stress. So I remember being disappointed and upset on the way there, and relieved on the way back. But I had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a job. I think I just had a bad accident of playing football on my ankle. So I was in a cast, and I was on crutches. So I dropped it off on the crutches, drove back, which I probably shouldn't have done, but I did. And again, it was my mum that phoned up the next day and said, I've got you a job interview to get you back into doing something, to earn some money. Again, at 24, she got me a job interview as a sales manager of a fitness club in Blackpool. And I went, right, okay, well, I'll just go and do that. So I went for the interview, and then 2 days later I had the job doing that. And that was probably the one thing in the industry I really love doing. And I don't see myself as a salesperson, but I really enjoyed that. And I think it was the people that I was working with. That's where I met my wife. So I'm still with her now.
Oh, nice.
She was a personal trainer.
Wow.
She was a personal trainer. So I met her there, and I loved being in around that.
Do you guys still train together?
So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I mean that
moves sitting in your gym here. So obviously,
moves that into the boxing conversation. That's pretty much where the boxing journey started. I've always had a passion for the sport, but there's so many complications around. There's two different things. Doing it as an actual sport and as a hobby is very different. But that's where the boxing sort of.
Where did Hatton boxing take birth? How did that happen then?
So at that point, as I was.
So you worked as a sales.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you mentioned sales, you're not a salesperson. I think a lot of times, sales is used as very derogatory.
Yeah.
In terms of, he's a sales guy. But the point is, sales is an art. I always tell people, Sales is a fucking life skill.
Yep.
If you don't know how to sell, you're fucked. You absolutely. In an interview, what are you doing? You're selling yourself.
Yeah.
In anything in life, I mean, you want to start dating somebody, that's a sales pitch.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to sell yourself. So everything is sales. Anything that you do, and the art is to sell something without somebody getting to know that he's being sold something.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of, it's an art.
Yeah.
And you have to build rapport for that. On the other hand, people view, when somebody's told, you know, I tell a lot of people, the first skill you should learn is sales.
Yeah.
You know, and I was discussing with Abhi the other day and with Aaron as well. Said, I've not seen a single personal trainer fail in life because he doesn't understand anatomy. I've seen them fail because they can't sell. And the reason they can't sell is because they think sales is sales. Sales is not sales. Sales is rapport building. The sales is a byproduct of, you know, what you've done over a period of time. Build rapport, you build reputation, everything, and you do that. So if you come back to, you know, what you're talking about, Hatton boxing, how did this, from this job, now you took this job as sales, how did you transition, go back and say, I want to be an entrepreneur again?
Yeah, naturally just took a course. I did what I do, which is I can't rest at doing what I'm doing when I'm working for somebody else. And started doing more sort of training courses, being out in the market and seeing what is there, and understanding boxing, and understanding that the current marketplace didn't have anything that was good enough for personal trainers to what I always talk about is bridging the gap. There's boxing for fitness. The boxing world think boxing is a sacred thing that nobody can do unless you've had 100 fights. And boxing for fitness is what they see in the boxing world is they're not the same thing. Whereas I'm like, you've got to try and bridge that gap and get it closer, because, you know, a lot of the amateur boxing clubs and things like that struggle because they don't have a big enough target audience, because they don't cater to the people that love the sport but don't always like getting punched in the face, you know. Boxing is a hobby. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, you just go sparring 3 times a week? You can't. You can't. And some people do, of course they do. But not a high percentage of people. So I really looked at it and went, the fitness industry, there's loads of people that want to take part in boxing and is a workout, but they don't want to fight. But we need to make sure that the principles that they're being taught are correct and good for the desired outcome for that person, whether they want to lose weight, they want to get fit, all those things. So started just putting together some different things, worked with lots of different people around what was out there in the market, and then started running a boxing training course, literally writing it out, mapping it through reps. And then I turned around to the person that I was working with at the time and said, I'm going to go on this journey of boxing for fitness. And that's kind of what happened. My office was still based out the same sales office that it was there. I used to train a lot with, like, some of my now wife Charlie. We used to do a lot of pad work together. So we set off on this journey where we would sell the course Monday to Friday. So it's set in the office. It was actually in the back of a mum's house, in a summer house. Charlie used to look after all the equipment. So she used to look after all the equipment side of it. And I used to do all the sales for the training course. And then on a Friday, we'd pack the car up, we'd drive to Edinburgh, drive to London, drive to, get on a ferry, go to Belfast, Manchester, and deliver these training courses to 7, 8, 4, sometimes 15, 20 people. And then then come back to the office on a Sunday evening, drop all the kit off, get back Monday and go again. Didn't particularly make loads of money, but it was new and it was exciting, and it was something we both enjoyed doing together. And at the time we were using Adidas boxing equipment. And at the end of the course, you turn around and say to everyone, do you want to buy the kit? And it was just getting expensive. The pads and gloves were expensive. And I'd noticed that the Hatton brand had just brought out a new range of equipment, and they were looking at partners and distributors, and being just a huge Ricky fan, I just reached out and said, this is what we do. I'd be interested in looking at the kit. So they invited me to Manchester, which is where the gym, which ended up being my office and home for 8 years, in Hyde. And went and met the sales guy, and because it was new, for this product range was new, I suppose my proposal to them was quite exciting. You know, I'd got to the point where I was running probably a course every weekend, averaging 10, 15 people on a course, selling 10, 15 sets of pads and gloves to each person. So a chance for them to get their boxing equipment out in the market. So we had a conversation, and then I met the group CEO at the time, who sadly passed away now, Dave, I spent a lot of time with him. And he said, Ricky's always wanted to get into fitness. And we've had a conversation with a few key accounts, and we're just not quite sure the route. And instantly I went, because you've got to bridge this gap between boxing and boxing for fitness. That's what's got to happen. Yeah. So he said, why don't you come and deliver your training course to all the staff of the gym? Because Hatton Health and Fitness was there with a group of staff. So I said, yeah, that happened within a week. I went and delivered the course. They then fed it back to him to say it was good, and they enjoyed it, which was helpful. And then Dave said, right, I've had a chat with Ricky and different members of the team. Why don't we bring you on and what you've got and be part of this Hatton group that we've created? I didn't need a lot of time to think about it because again, I was a huge fan, but I also saw that opportunity. What I'd battled with for the years was the credibility, the boxing credibility. And because I'd talked so much about the gap between boxing and boxing fitness and bridging it so that we can bring them together, but in an organised manner, I saw this as a real chance. But when I got there, I said, right, what I want to do is I want to stop everything that I'm doing. I want to spend some time watching what he does and watch what some of the professional fighters do. How can we take real elements of what he did in his fighting career and what he does now as a coach, and how can we put that into the course? So this isn't just Ricky putting his name and badging it. We wanted to really get some insight, and he was brilliant. So he was really good at saying that this is why I do stuff, this is why I did it, this is what I used to get wrong when I was boxing or what I'm coaching, and then I'd be able to really map the training course around that. So he had a big influence in that, more than people would think and recommend, understand that he did. But
a lot of people believe in, especially when there are products endorsed by superstars, that, it's just a name. But I now understand where you're coming from. I didn't know this, honestly, I didn't know this.
Yeah, this wasn't, I spent a lot of time with him and with the professional fighters in the gym, which was amazing. And then took that sort of 6 to 8 months to really build the brand of what was first Hatton Academy. So we rebadged up my boxing training course. Hatton Academy was its new name. Redesigned all of the manuals, put little elements of Ricky in there, and did photo shoots and things to really bring it to life. And I remember when we relaunched it, it was on the front cover of Boxing News.
Wow. And
there was a picture of Ricky throwing a punch. I was catching the punch. You could just see the back of my head. I had a mohawk at the time. You can just see the back of my head. And then next to it was a big picture of Manny Pacquiao. And I should have it framed somewhere, because I remember seeing it and going, God, I'm on the front cover of Boxing News. It was the back of my head. And I've got Ricky and Manny Pacquiao. And then these two are like legends and absolute heroes of mine. And I'm there on the front page of Boxing News because we've launched this training academy. And then all the challenges around, how do we get the messaging right? Because I wanted to stay authentic to the people that needed the training, which was the fitness professionals. And they need people to do functional exercise and do workouts that we didn't want to go down the boxing route. How do you do sparring and how do you corner someone in a fight? That's not what we're about. That's not what we've ever tried to be. So, some of the early days, some of the boxing people going, it's not boxing. And you're like, well, it is boxing. And we teach all the techniques that you need to understand, all the mechanics of the body, how you throw a jab, how you throw a cross, how that means that you're building a combination in a certain way. When you're catching the punches on the pads, how do you do it properly? How do you watch these guys on the TV who are warming people up in the changing rooms or in boxing gyms? How do they do it? And as a fitness professional, why can you not learn it that way? It's just that how you actually implement it and how you put it in practice needs to be relevant to the person that's paying for it. So it was managing that gap, which wasn't too difficult. And the training course has now been going nearly 15 years, and the content is literally no different. And when I say that, that's a good thing. You know, you can always look, and we continually look to evolve and develop it, but the core fundamentals of how it's delivered is the same.
The foundation is strong, and you made a foundation with, you know, one of the legends in boxing. So I think what I'm hearing is, you know, boxing as a non-contact sport was non-existent. Today, a lot of people who I know go to BOX12, you know, they feel they're like boxers, and they feel because they're able to throw a punch, they now know the technique. I still remember, I don't remember the name of that lady who came in to our stall at BOX12 in Dubai, and you said you trained her as a master trainer, and then she started working somewhere. Kim, right? And I saw her boxing, and I remember I came up to you and asked, I said, man, she's good. Who's she? And you said she's disqualified. So I could see the difference, and I could see also the passion with which she was. You know, she was very conscious of the technique, the way she was going about it. So I think that's something that you can teach. So you identified a gap. If I look at it as a third party, I realize you identified a gap and made a business out of it, right? Which started with training and then the academy or whatever. Now, this is something that, you know, entrepreneurs need to do. They need to identify an area where they can add value and which is a gap. So like even your cricket, you know, shop was a gap in the market. So you identify a gap and then you work on a good business plan to make it work. So this transition from, and I obviously, you know, I know bits and pieces of this, but you know, if you could tell me the entire story. I still remember that drawing of yours you had made on, you know, when the first BOX12 setup was going up. Yeah. And I've seen it when we went to the site and you said, you know, this was supposed to come in here. How did this happen? How did this transition happen? Especially considering the fact you were trying to launch BOX12 and you got, I mean, obviously COVID came and fucked everybody else, all of us, but how did you kind of transition this?
So Hatton Boxing was running, that whole 8 years of my life was a crazy whirlwind. Being involved in Hatton Boxing and the professional boxing environment, you know, I did produce TV shows that were live on Box Nation.
Wow.
I mean, I don't know how or why, but I did, and that was the world that I was in. You know, we put 2 events on in Stoke, boxing shows, and I was there, headset on, talking to the people on, doing a live Box Nation set. You know, the amount of different things that I did during that time was crazy, and I loved every minute of it. The people were fantastic there. Loved spending time with Ricky and all the professional boxers.
So you were an entrepreneur at that point of time,
Yeah, I mean, I ran technically. Ricky and I were partners in Hatton Boxing. I mean, I looked after it. He had lots of other stuff going on with.
And this is something I really love, you know, about entrepreneurs. You know, you keep changing the, you know, hats you wear.
Yeah.
And without even realizing, you would have like 10 hats in a day, and you're doing 10 things in the same day. And you come to think of it when you look at and this is what I say, an employee's mindset is very different. You know, a lot of people come to me that, you know what, this is what my business plan is. This I want to do this, point A to point Z, I've put it down. I said, you know what, all this, what you've written down, none of this is going to fucking happen.
Yeah.
You planned this, but this is not good, this is not how it's going to happen. And then the first time you hit a roadblock, you say, man, I quit. You know, I planned for this, it didn't work. And you don't realize an employee mindset is, this is my job description. I do A, B, C, D, E, and that's it. That's my job. But as an entrepreneur, when you're running a show, you learn skills on the way.
Yeah.
You know, you're never prepared for everything. You know, you keep learning, and it's a lot of sacrifice also, because you know, anything that somebody says I can't do, you'll have to say, okay, man, fuck it. I have to learn this and do it. So I give this analogy to a lot of people, to my friends. If you remember this movie, there's this movie called Matrix.
Yep.
You know, so I remember, so this is Keanu Reeves and Trinity, and you know, they're on the roof, and he asks her, can you fly that helicopter? She says, not at the moment. Yeah. And then after 20 seconds, she says, now I can. Yeah. That's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I said right back early on when I said I think I do that without thinking about that I'm doing it. Even some of the things that we're talking about now and all the different things that piece together, never really, it's been a thought process. I don't think that I think like that, but I obviously do. I mean, some of the stuff for 8 years at Hatton Boxing at the HQ in Hyde, it's crackers. I mean, crackers.
I can give you examples of things you've done which you thought you would never do.
Yeah.
I remember your first conversation with Neerav when you were developing the software.
Oh yeah, of course.
You're not a tech guy.
No idea. Yeah, no, absolutely right. And you do have to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, when you run a company, essentially the buck stops with you. There's no one. I can't turn around to somebody else and say, this is what needs to be done. If I haven't got the skill set in the business, or you're looking to do something different, you have to understand it to a level to be able to then guide someone else. I mean, the ideal scenario is you just bring people in that are brilliant at everything and have a big team of people. But as you know yourself, when you're starting out, you can't do that. No. So the hat and boxing, it was an individual process. I had a team of people, and I would then, that's where I'd start to come into conversation when Jamie comes in. We used to do a hat and boxing. We still do a hat and boxing golf day every year. And I was actually getting all the scorecards, filling them out for the round of golf. And there was a spare seat next to Jamie. I'd not met him, I'd not spoke to him. He was working at MyZone at the time. And I said, is there any chance I can sit down? He was like, yeah. He said, let me go and get you a beer. You look like you're stressed out doing those scorecards. So I went, yeah, so start of a good partnership. So I sat down and then chatted away, and then we just got on like a house on fire. And the more that we'd gone to these social events and different things, it always ended up, it was us two. We were, going out and a few drinks, and we always just got on really well. And I was starting to move down the route of thinking of doing something as a boxing boutique, because that's when the boutique world was booming. And Jamie was doing something similar with a boutique concept, circuit-based boutique concept. And it was actually on the flight on the way to Ursa. And he showed me the drawings. And interestingly, when he talks about it, he'll say that he was quite, kept his cards quite close to his chest about what he's doing, because he saw me as doing the same thing, potentially a competitor in the market. Whereas because I don't think deep enough about that, I didn't even give it a second thought. And that's why we work well together. And he finally showed me on his phone these CAD drawings he'd had done for the site that is now BOX12 in Newcastle-under-Lyme, of this circuit concept without boxing. And I had showed him what I was doing, which was not the site in Newcastle-on-Lyme, which was all boxing. And we kind of had this moment where we were like, surely we've got to be some way we can do something together. And because I was so impressed by him, from all the interaction I'd had as a person and also what he'd done with MyZone, I was like, why don't you just come and start working with hat and boxing? Have a look at that from a sales process and what that's doing. And then we can then carry on the conversations around what we're doing with BOX12. Well, with a concept that wasn't BOX12 then at the time. So that's what happened. So he came and made huge changes in hat and boxing, which he has a skill set that I don't have, which is really essential in a partnership. Our first initial worry was we're going to be too similar, because socially we got on so well and we were such.
But you're not similar. Both of you are very different.
Very different. We didn't realise that. We didn't realise that at the time. So he came and did great things with hat and boxing that we still implement and we still have today. And that's when we made the choice to move the office away from there. Had a conversation with the guys at hat and boxing. Had a conversation with Ricky to say, I've got this burning desire again to do something alongside it and different to it.
Oh, fuck's sake, here we go again.
Yeah, no, and it was absolutely fine, and still part of what we do. Ricky's still part of what we do now. And then that's when Jamie and I started out on this journey around what the next thing was going to be, this boutique offering. And we took elements of the concept of his circuit and what he understood about franchise and his background and his knowledge on that, and then my boxing programming and understanding how getting that boxing for fitness piece is right. And interestingly, during that journey, Jamie and I had started doing a lot of training together, and I was doing a lot of pad work with him, and he'd found this new love for boxing, with his ex-sporting background, knees and ankle problems. He found eventually he had a sort of high intensity workout, which was low impact, that he was really enjoying. So it was really interesting to get his insight into it as well, because he came from a different perspective. He looked at it from someone that was brand new, walking into a boxing for fitness world where I'd been doing it for 10 years. So the two sort of understandings of how we were going to get to where we wanted to get to with this was perfect, because he could really come at it from well, we need to make it simpler, we need to simplify it, and I'm going, well, I've been doing it for 9 years, and I think that I want to be more complicated with a combination, for example. And he was like, but that's not what everyone wants. And we then had to be able to find a happy medium. It was just part of working in that partnership. So we set about this mad journey of building BOX12 and getting a lease and taking on the building and fitting it out and all the joys that come with.
When was
with
this?
that.
What year was this?
So this was February 2019 when we incorporated it. Am I right? 2019, I think so. And then everything was finished and done in November 2019. And then COVID hit in March, and I remember both of us sitting in the gym, really, really fighting to not close, and to the point where the announcement came out that you have to close, and I was at the gym. I remember my wife phoning me up saying, you're going to have to come home because they're going to lock everyone down, and if you're not home, because at the time we didn't know what it meant. I was like, well, do I stay here with Jamie for 2 years and we just have a laugh in the gym? Or do I go home to my wife and kids? So, because we couldn't play golf, I decided to come home to my wife and kids. This is
going on the podcast.
Yeah, the podcast, she'll be fine. She will understand that that's what would have happened. We closed the gym. And having been headlong into everything that we'd done, we were just like, we're just going to figure it out. Like, we had a week where our heads was up our arse. I probably speak to him 5 times a day. And I didn't speak to him for a week. Head was up our arse, didn't really know what we were going to do. And then we went, and I remember it was Jamie that said to me, everyone else will be doing what we've just done, which is sitting there, self-pity, what we're going to do, are we going to lose it? We can now steal a march on everyone else. Let's just do everything we possibly can to try and reinvent it. Luckily, 2 months before COVID hit, we built an online platform for hat boxing because we felt the future was going to be in online education. We'd been through the testing process, we'd built it all, we'd filmed it, everything. So luckily, we were ready to go with that side of it. But with BOX12, we just had to roll our sleeves up and do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. We built an online transformation plan that we gave to 60 of our friends, and we created a WhatsApp group with 60 of our friends that all went through this transformation plan together, which was brilliant. We then did online workouts where Jamie was going in and doing workouts, but even the preparation around that, I remember we were having conversations around this online. Everyone was doing it at home in the front room and kids in the background, and there was something very special and magical about that. But because BOX12 was so new, we didn't want to represent the brand in that light. So we had a backdrop. We used MyZone. We spoke to Dave Wright and said, how can we incorporate MyZone into what we just want this experience to be what BOX12 is supposed to be, which the workout is the star of the show. That's the rock star.
Right.
So we have to carry that on during times where we can't show what we've built.
Yeah.
So we'd go in, and Jamie was always branded up with BOX12. It was important that he always had the brand on. It was important that we had the MyZone screen and we integrated tech and we talked about it. The workout stayed true to what it was, and we spent time building it and planning it. And the transformation plan, I built the thing on a web portal. We uploaded the videos, we edited them ourselves. We were up till 2 o'clock in the morning editing videos and creating PDF content, because when it went out even to 60 of our friends, it had to be the best it could be for BOX12. And then there was a company called Pro Insight that were doing, obviously in a very similar position during COVID, where they can't do mystery shops because they can't go anywhere. And they brilliantly did a mystery shop on online workouts. And I remember that David, the chap who runs it, phoned up Jamie and said, we've finished our mystery shop. And this is what we've done. We've scored it on all of these different factors. And we've done a leaderboard. So we've got a leaderboard that's got the top 10 and it scores at a top 10. And we were first. And and BOX12 were number 1 on this online leaderboard. And you had the likes of One Rebel and Pure Gym and Gym Group and David Lloyd.
I remember the discussion we had in Germany. I think, who was there? I think Chloe's part of...
Yeah, Chloe.
I remember this discussion.
And they did this full report. It was like a 15-page report, and it was all about how people had represented their brand and how people had used technology and explained the workout, how it was delivered, how it was presented. All the things that we'd factored in before we did any of this online workout. Without knowing that anyone was going to do a thing. And it was a moment where we saw BOX12 ahead of some of these big operators and big key accounts. And obviously, resource would have been a big factor because it was Jamie and I, we could do it all. It was difficult for large operators to know which way to go. But it meant that we were on a level playing field. It wasn't about the number of sites that you got. It wasn't about how much money you had. It was actually
because customers don't see it like that.
Of course. It was actually now purely about the workout that was being offered. And because we were really simple, we had one offering, which was a BOX12 workout. It was just another tick in the box to go, people actually enjoy doing this workout. So we know that when we opened the club, people would pay money to do it. We know now we're trying to take that online. We're taking all the thrills away. There's no kit. You're shadow boxing and doing bodyweight exercises, and people are doing that. And it was great when we were doing live on Facebook and Instagram, and some of the loads of industry people that were doing it, and they were all getting together, and it was just you look back and it was a dark time because of what COVID was, and you didn't know what the outcome was going to be. But Jamie won't agree because he had to go and do all the workouts himself. So, but you look back now and go, it was an incredible time, but it was essential for us. Because what that did, is crazy as that was going on with all the online stuff and all the things that we had to do to make that happen for not really any reason. We don't now still do online workouts, but at the time I think everyone thought that everyone was now going to be stood in front of a camera. But we'd not even planned that far. But what it meant that we could just stop. Jamie had come on board into Hat Box and made some big changes. We'd taken the office from Hat Boxing away and moved it on, but it was still running. We'd built an online training platform for Hat Boxing to be delivered to anywhere in the world. We had built BOX12. We'd built the software and the technology in its version 1 form, which is now, as you know, has changed. We'd created this thing, and we'd built it. We'd opened the doors, and we'd actually put it out there for people to try it. COVID hit almost the time to say, you guys need to stop and just sit back and go, what are you doing? What have you created? Why are you doing it? Where does the future go? That point almost feels like it was meant to be that we had that stop. And we could ask all the questions that we need to ask.
So in hindsight, do you think what happened was good for the business?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We definitely wouldn't... I think we'd have ended up in the direction we've gone in. I think we would have done, but I think we managed to get there sooner. The original plan, as you know, with BOX12,
which is so surprising. I was coming to that because your initial plan was very different from what you're doing now. And how did you come to this realization that this is probably a better route to take than to just go the pure franchising? Because obviously Jamie comes with a franchising background.
Of course. Yeah, and he understands the challenges to that, so the good and the bad.
Yeah.
So he understands how
more bad
to...
than good, though.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. If you set up and you're willing to go down that path, BOX12 was built as a franchise, as a low entry franchise model, to look at maybe supporting some of the instructors we've got through a database, a 9,000 instructor database of qualified boxing instructors. So it ticked all the boxes to do that. But COVID stopped it. You can't prove a financial model when you're not open. So you can prove a fitness concept, which is we've done over a short period of time. Are people willing to pay money to do that workout? Yes. Does it work the way we wanted to do? Yes. Does it then work if you take all the equipment away and do the same workout online in front of a computer? Yes, it does. So we proved that the fitness workout and the fitness concept was there, but we're going to have to now prove the financial model. What that means is we're going to have to reopen after COVID. We don't understand what the bounce back from COVID is going to be. So is the financial model going to be replicated, or is it going to be a turmoil for the next 6 to 8 months, 12 months? But when we sat back and looked at what we created, we went all the benefits of a low entry franchise model, tick all the same boxes for an operator. So the boutique market had kicked in mainly in the capital and big cities. But we'd noticed it because of our B2B contacts through Hat Boxing. The operators were starting to try and find a way in which they could bring that boutique experience into their club. And the one thing that stood out, that the factor that was different, was this rock star instructor. So can you get a rock star instructor in the middle of London paying them really good money to? Yes, you can. Is there a risk to that? Of course.
100%.
Can you then replicate it across 150 sites where you're relying on this rock star instructor to deliver a boutique workout? Very difficult. So what we'd identified is what BOX12 actually does is it takes the necessity away from a rock star instructor, because our rock star is the workout. So that was a big tick for the operator. The CapEx cost at the front end and the fit out, because the way we'd built it with a person in mind that didn't have endless pots of money, meant that that then transcended well into a club. You know, we're not asking people for 250, 300,000 pound fit outs. You know, the CapEx cost is small. The recruitment of the staff, the ongoing training of the staff is lower because the technology does the work. So we then started asking questions to people that we knew we had relationships with an operator. And the first person we spoke to went, this would 100% work in club.
Jamie Lyon.
Well, Jamie was the first to take it up as a thing. I'll talk a little bit about him. But this was Anthony Elliott. Our now biggest key account across Saudi. And he said, I can definitely see this working. He's very switched on. He's a clever guy. And you can see
I remember
working.
he visited you guys, I think, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he came to the gym, did the workout. So we then, let's put it into a club. We put it into Fitness Time out in Saudi, who are now a large part of our business and great partner that we've got there. And it just, we sent all the equipment over. Again, we couldn't go and visit because the COVID was still lingering around. We sent all the kit over in a container of kit with a drawing and a schematic of how to set it up. A week later, I got a picture back of BOX12 built in this massive Fitness Time club. And I just went, well, that's simple. We send it over and go, that's how you do it. That's how you plug everything in. Yeah. They went, was that good? Yeah, it works. Never been. We've now got a BOX12 sitting in a site, and we've never been and seen it. We'd never had to be there and do all the things that you would expect we have to do. So it was just another tick in that box to say, okay, we can give operators a real chance here to compete with that boutique market, enhance their group exercise experience without all the pain and the barrier that we've got. And Jamie put a post out on LinkedIn to say we've opened this club in Saudi Arabia and with Fitness Time as an in-club. And that's when Jamie Lyon reached out and went, as he is, which is just a great straight talking guy. Yes. Well, let's just put it in my site at Waterside, and we put our first in-club solution, full in-club solution in the UK in his site in Waterside. And you know, everything happens for a reason. They are like the perfect first customer anyone could ever have.
Absolutely. Like
their staff are just unbelievable, engaged. Anything that they will do, anything in attitude, you know, helping us that first site. There was, you know, challenges as there is with site fit out. There wasn't with them because there was nothing that was a problem. Yeah. You know, Chris, the guy that does all of the maintenance, it would just, it needed an extra plug socket. Yeah, it's fine. I'll do it. 10 minutes later, there's a plug socket in, and they were just brilliant.
Jimmy's got a wonderful team. I mean, he's a true leader. And I haven't met I haven't met anybody else who's as straight as he is. He just tells you as it is. Just tells you that's it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Simple as that.
The whole process of getting it in was simple, straightforward. You know, we could say to them, look, we're this customer journey piece, we need to learn with you. And they're just insight. I mean, we send other customers that are looking at BOX12 to the Waterside. Sometimes if someone can't be there on a certain date, Alice or Hannah or anyone on site will just look after them and tell them, because sometimes it's good to, from a customer that wants to buy your product, that wants to go and speak to another customer without you, the sales guy, being there is valuable. But you know, they're
I saw brilliant. The product when nobody was there.
Yeah, of course.
I was just working and I said, what is this? You know, this concept, and I just went and saw what's happening, and it was, I still remember, it was 12 in the afternoon. It was hammered, packed. Yeah. I said, what kind of a concept is this? And I'd never seen something like this before. So obviously, I know what you're saying.
And that's testament to them and their team. We've now got the other one ready to go and open soon in Huddersfield with them, which we're excited about. And what they did for BOX12 early on, and still do to this day. Alice is on maternity leave. She leaves tomorrow, and I was chatting to her yesterday, and I was saying to her, they've played a huge part in BOX12. They were the perfect customer at the perfect time. We've done case studies, and they send us information we don't even ask for that's valuable to us. They're brilliant. So and then it rolled on from there. Really, that's where the In Club really became the thing. We were like, hang on a second, the challenges around franchising. Yes, it is still a very good franchise business, and a lot of people still to this day visit our site in Newcastle and say, oh, you should franchise it. And we go, we know.
I was one of them.
Yeah, of course. We go, we know, and time will tell where that will go. But for now, supporting the operators, you think now, what we're 2 years into it, and working with the likes of David Lloyd and the Village Hotels and Fitness Time, and all these people with what it is that Jamie and I built in this site in Newcastle, because we really truly understood what we were trying to build, and I think the combination was both together, and the passion we had for building this brand, as testament to where it is now.
So how do you think you've been able to create a brand, BOX12? So usually it takes a lot of time to create a brand, a new brand. A, it's a new concept. B, it's a brand that nobody knew. You came up with the name BOX12, right? And initially, if you ask me, I would have thought BOX12 is it talks a lot about boxing. So a lot of people may not want to, take the product, because boxing is viewed as a contact sport, and then boxing is, you say, no, I don't want to do boxing. I remember I was at your site in Newcastle under, and I remember two lads walked in, and the person who owns the club, she was there, and they came in and asked this question that they were actually wanted to do actual boxing. So, which is what, is where I'm coming to. Most people would look at BOX12 and think it's a boxing club. How did you manage to position the brand the right way? You also come with Hatton Boxing. The name Ricky Hatton is, again, boxing. So how did you make BOX12 synonymous with fitness and not boxing per se?
I think it goes back to right at the start. That is what I've always tried to do in this whole boxing journey, is boxing for fitness, bridge that gap together. And this was 2 years in the building of BOX12. This took up a huge part of our time. Jamie and I, it's a conversation around, if someone walks into one of our sites with a head guard and their gum shield, our marketing of how we've talked about BOX12 and built as a brand has failed. That's in a nutshell what we looked at. We had to create a brand with the personas of who it was, the imagery that we used, the tone of voice that we created. We've got Ed, who's a very talented designer that created the brand. He took what we were talking about and what we understood, and we tweaked it and we changed it. And I'll tell you, we didn't have another name for it. We didn't have a mood board with 15 different names. It was been BOX12 from the start, and it's always been BOX12. We didn't have a different look and feel and style to how it was going to be. We were always very clear on the people we wanted to talk to. So we still have our member personas that we wanted to create. And we still wanted to talk to every single person that goes in the gym. The guys that want to box and the girls that want to fight and things like that, that's not who we're talking to. We're talking to the 98% of other people that want to feel like a boxer. You talked about it before. Everyone wants to feel like they're a boxer. They want to throw a punch and they feel like they're moving in the right way. There's something about it. You don't necessarily then want to put a head guard on, a gum shield in and get your head punched in. And that's not what BOX12 was about. So the look and feel of the club, the types of bags that we used, what do people think when they walk in? We did research. We got groups of people, showed them the brand, showed them the imagery. What does this mean to you? All the things that, all the things that everyone has to do when they're building a brand. But essentially, sometimes it has to stick, and it it does or it doesn't. There's science behind it. You've got to do all the right things. But the one thing we also wanted BOX12 to be and do is a representation of Jamie and I's character. So the way that we position it, the way that we perceive the brand, whether it's at events and at shows, we want people to see BOX12 and see that it is a reflection of how we are, which is we're enjoying the journey. It's a fun place to be, and it's an enjoyable experience. That's why we talked about before about we're always personable and people have good things to say, which is amazing. We want BOX12 to be part of that, and I think that's what's happened. I think people see BOX12 and I'd like to think it almost puts a bit of a smile on their face because they know behind it is all, it's fun and it's engaging. We want everyone to be able to do it. There's no elitists. We're not trying to target boxers. We're not telling people that, if you can't throw a jabber across that way, and it's absolutely the opposite to that. When we opened the club at Newcastle, and we say this now from when we're selling to people, it isn't about getting all the techniques perfect and do it. It's about people having fun and getting out of it, getting out of the house, going engaging in exercise. Boxing's a great way to do that. And if you can do that, it's fine. Your technique will get better over time. If you're naturally good at it, great. The girls are always better because the coordination's better than the blokes. So that's why boxing works really well with a female audience, because they're coordinated a lot better, which means they generate power, guys swinging their arms around. And it was all encompassing that about creating that brand. It was getting all the things that you have to do, all the things we wanted it to be, all the people that we wanted it to attract. And then does the brand talk to those people? Ask them the question, yes, it does. And then the next thing, we continually go on this journey of making sure that us as people have BOX12, and BOX12 is part of what we represent. Not just us, but everyone that's part of it. The whole members of the team, whether it's Dickie or whether it's Kenny, anyone that's part of that team has to have the same values that BOX12 has, which is it's fun and it's engaging, and anyone can take part and anyone can do that.
I think another thing I've noticed about with you is that as a team, you're also extremely flexible and you don't have fixated ideas, which means I'll give you an example. So let's take an example. Somebody comes up with an idea, you don't shoot it down the first time. I remember when we discussed the creating. I remember we were at Elevate and we discussed that next year we should have our own stall with an actual. And I remember Jamie and you going, we should have an actual kind of a BOX12 setup, complete club, and people should just come and feel it. And I told you, what, I can get it shipped across, and Shrey can make it for you and it can get shipped across. So yeah, okay, let's see if it can be done. And that approach of saying, I know a lot of people who'll start with no but. You start with yes, let's see.
Yeah.
Now is that both of you, or how do you manage this? Because this is very difficult, especially in a partnership. I've seen, and I can say you and Jamie, while you're great friends, you're chalk and cheese in terms of personalities. You're very, very different people per se. How you look at things. So how do you manage things like this, especially when new ideas are thrown at you?
So I love doing things. So I like getting tasks and all the stuff that Jamie doesn't like doing. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean in Excel sheets and things are his worst nightmare. He's so creative with his mind that I don't want him to be doing that. I don't want him to be bogged down in, when we built the transformation plan, I did all the boring stuff, and I'd message him and go, oh, look how cool, and he'd go, mate, you're such a geek, what are you doing? I don't care. And that's works really well. But so I do things. So any idea, and all through, when I look back at how Hatton Boxing started, someone's always given me an opportunity and a chance and listened to an idea that I had, and it became what it became. So I never would ever just say no to anything, because you never know whether it's a good or a bad idea. You can start asking the right questions to find out what path and what journey someone is going to be on, whether it's a good or a bad idea. But essentially, if it's their passion and what they think about, and they will make it happen. I thought a cricket shop was a good idea, and it was a good idea. But I was passionate about it. So the reason why it went for 3 years is because I was the one that was passionate about making it happen. So anyone for me that's got an idea, then if you're passionate about your idea, you've got a chance that it's going to go somewhere. Yes, there might be roadblocks on the way, but a lot of the time people would jump over them because they've earned this forthright plan to go, I'm going to make this happen. So the benefit we've got as a partnership is Jamie I would say, is more of an entrepreneur than me, more of a forward thinker than I am. He's always constantly thinking of different things to do. The benefit I have with him is I know that he's asked 100 questions of his idea before he's told it me. So I don't have to think like that. He'll say, what do you think about this? I know that he's already thought about all the things that could go wrong with it. So I don't have to do that. I then have to go, how are we going to think about implementing this and making it work? And then it might be 2 days later where he goes, sack that off, I'm not doing that. Because he's carried on thinking about it. And I just go, okay, nothing lost. That's where it works really, really well.
Nice.
So if I know that someone's got an idea and they've already thought about it in more detail than probably I will ever think about it, before they've spoke to me, I don't need to worry about the detail. I don't need to think. Of course I do. And of course I will add value and think that way. But because I know that he's already that step ahead there, I don't have to. I then have to think about the challenge of how we're going to make it work. I'll give you an example. Friday night, I'm on the way. I've just booked a camper van for the weekend and I was on my way back from that. And he phones me up and I missed the call because I was in the car and all kids screaming in the background. And I messaged him and said, do you need something? Because I knew he was playing golf because it's Friday. And he put, not unless you're in front of your computer. So I was like, I got back in the house and jumped in front of the computer about 5 o'clock on Friday. So I went, I'm in front of my computer. So what do you want? And he goes, running a football event tonight. I've got 3 teams of 11 and I need to write the names out, but I don't want to just keep writing the names out on the sheet. So I want an Excel sheet that automatically populates the names based on giving him a number. And I know that in his head, he's going, I just want to make my life easier. And I've got an idea that will make the process better, but he doesn't want to do the process. So I went, give me a minute.
Typical Jamie. 15
minutes. And then I phone him up. Right, I think I've created a spreadsheet for you. Right, let me have a look. Perfect. And then he then goes and does it. And that it made me smile. It made me laugh afterwards because I was like, it kind of sums us up in a way that he's got an idea that makes the process way better. And the thought of him writing down the names of all his team and having to change it all, I know if he'll just be going, that's going to drive me mad. There must be a process out there that's better than that. So I'll tell John what I want to do. He'll then create the formula for me to go and do it. I'll get it back, do it, it'll work fine. It's his idea and I've enabled him to do it and then he's put it into plan and it's worked. And it kind of just went for something that's so simple like an Excel sheet like that, that's an idea. That kind of sums up how it works so well.
He's a big ideation person. He constantly thinking of change. I still remember the call we had and when you were trying to get the pods into one pallet and he was going on the drawing and everything and telling us and he says, my drawing is extremely bad, but this is how I visualize it. So he's very clear. I think from an innovation perspective, he's very clear what he wants to do. And like you rightly said, he would have thought about 100 things before he even comes to you to tell you this. So I understand where you're coming from. And that's why you guys complement each other very well, in terms of working together.
Absolutely. It's essential. It's not all that. I mean, I think he will say like the pod, I was the one that kept banging on about we need to condense this in-club solution down into a single unit. But then we need to come together to actually talk it out and figure it through. And I know that he sees things very quickly. He sees things very rationally, faster than anyone I've ever met, to be honest. It's a skill that, again, and then actually putting that into place, working with the different suppliers and things like that it's where the true partnership works. And I think the reason why I've done lots of different things and he's done lots of different things and nothing's ever really felt like it's going to be what BOX12 has become. Almost because that we've now got a partnership that works really together and the bits that I maybe didn't have to get me to that next level, I've now got. And then, he might say differently, but I think he's probably got something similar in that. And it'd be interesting what happens over the next 10 to 15 years. I can still see us coming up with all sorts of weird and wonderful things to keep ourselves entertained other than golf.
Okay, one last question for you. Where do you see the future of BOX12? Where do you see it going and what's your vision for it?
The vision for BOX12, this changes every day. It does, it genuinely does. From when it started out to what it is to what it will be tomorrow. And where we will take it. I don't ever like to position it somewhere in 10 years' time, because I love the journey that we go on, which is just a bit chaotic. And I use chaotic in the best sense of the word. I don't mean chaotic as disorganized. I mean it as in exciting.
Ever evolving.
Ever evolving. And because of the type of people that Jamie and I are, constantly asking questions of it. What is it? How can it be different? I can see a place where there is a large standalone collection of BOX12s around the world. I think not going into central cities and moving into smaller areas, suburb type areas around city centres, that gives BOX12, that gives a real community feel for people that just get bored of doing a treadmill and bike and things and want to do something different. I think BOX12 ticks a lot of boxes for that. So I can see there being a large collection of those. I think continually to give operators the chance to have an experience, a technology-led experience. But yeah, in terms of where it's going to be in the future, I just love the fact that I don't know the answer to that.
Amazing.
More technology. We've got some great partners now. The stuff that Nirav's done to get us to where we are with our technology. Shreyas an essential partner in, ideas, and he must be pulling his hair out with us saying to him, "Can you do this? Can you do that? Can you make a change to this?" And even the different order process. We need to do that. We've got 100 here or 50 there or 25 there.
But it's fun, isn't it?
Of course, it's fun, and I need that. I can't sit there doing the same thing over and over again. One of my biggest bugbearers in every morning when I get up is making a packed lunch for the kids for school. And it's not because I'm very privileged that I've got the time to do that in the morning, but because they have the same thing over and over again. I find it difficult. I find it difficult packing the same thing in a packed lunch every single morning, because it's routine and it's doing the same thing, and I don't like it. I don't like doing it. I like doing different stuff, and I think that's why when people like Jamie, for example, has an idea and I can work on it, it gives me something new, different to do, even if it's for a day and it's two and we don't ever do it there. So I think we're going to carry on building this brand, carry on bringing people into the team, new partners, and carry on this hopefully the fun that has been the BOX12 journey to now.
Awesome. Thanks.